Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast. My name is Mark Ohrenberger, and I'm your host, the Graphic Novel Apostle, if you will. I'm going to call this episode 1A. It's not a full episode like our last one. As I said in our first episode, we're still trying to figure out exactly how this podcast is going to work. I think that we'll probably end up doing something like full episodes every 2 weeks where I have a guest on and we talk about a book. And then we'll do a separate episode in between. I'm going to do my best to stick to a Monday morning schedule with all of those podcasts. For these in-between episodes, I think what we're going to do is probably just keep it pretty short, answer a little bit of listener feedback that we've gotten from the previous episode, maybe do a little bit of a preview to the book ahead. Also, take any questions that we have generally about comic books, or maybe I'll talk a little bit about something that I'm reading currently. As always, I want to remind you that you can reach me by email at graphicnovelapostle@gmail.com. Also, please follow us on Instagram at graphicnovelapostle. We'd love for you to subscribe to this show, love for you to write a review. So I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for those of you who listened to our first full episode where we covered the book Spy Superb by Matt Kint with my friend Chad Toppy. Got a lot of really positive feedback from so many of you, and I appreciate the encouragement. You know, it's my first time to do a podcast, and you kind of put yourself out there a little bit. It was great to hear back that some of you liked it. I mentioned to Chad sometime earlier this week that I was going to do this little mini podcast where I talked about a few extra things that either got left out or people wrote in about. And he wrote back, we were on a group with a couple of guys in this text, and he wrote back and said, "It's just shocking to me that after a 2-hour podcast, Mark thinks there's still some more meat on the bone." But you know what? I think there is. A couple of things that either I missed and some of you pointed out to me, or questions that we had, and I just want to hit those real quickly. First of all, I had several people reach out to me and say that either they listened to the whole episode and they were still planning to read the book because they thought it just sounded fun, or they said, you know what, I got a certain amount into your podcast and I stopped, and I'm going to go check that book out from my library or track down a copy and read it and then come back. And that was so exciting and so encouraging to me. So thank you so much for those of you who reached out and did that. That brings me to a question that I have for you, and I'd love to hear back. Did we overdo it covering this book? Was this too much detail? At least for our first 3 episodes, full episodes that we've already recorded, nothing I can do to change that. We're going pretty heavy into the details of these books. But it may be that as time goes on, if I hear from a lot of you that, yeah, how about, leave a little something still to be discovered in the book by reading it, then I'll plan to do that. But let me know. Maybe you like having that much description of the book. I certainly had a fun time going through every part of it again. Another question that I had come up a couple of times over the course of this week was, is this a book that would be okay for me to give to my kids? Because it sounds like they would like it and it'd be fun. And I'll tell you, I think that a lot of the books that we cover here on this podcast are really geared toward an adult audience. This first book, Spy Superb, certainly I would have no trouble handing it to Garrett, my 10-year-old. Wouldn't think twice about doing that. It's not targeted toward an audience of his age, but it is a book that he could read. There wouldn't be anything objectionable or concerning to me about him taking in this book. So one of the pieces of feedback that I got from a couple of you, it turns out maybe I should have studied a little French, and something that was there and went over my head in this episode, I referred to several times the organization that the Spy Superb program came from as Operation Half Hewitt, H-U-I-T. Of course, I don't know how to pronounce that French word, but some of you do. And apparently, that word is pronounced wheat, or something close to wheat. So it's actually Operation Half Wheat, which is just another wonderful joke. So it's Operation Half Wit, which couldn't better suit our good friend J. Bartholomew III. Secondly, my friend Craig Bruckhart, who I reconnected with after issuing this podcast, he moved away to D.C. a couple of years ago, and he's somebody I've really missed. I reached out to him about having done this first episode. He listened to it, and it turned out my buddy Craig has been reading graphic novels in the time since we last connected, and I thought that was really cool to hear. But also this week, it turns out he had taken a trip to New Orleans, and a few days later, he sent me a picture of himself with a statue of Ignatius J. Riley from the Confederacy of Dunces, which was set in New Orleans, and of course we discussed in the Spy Superb episode. And so we'll have that picture of Craig and Ignatius J. Riley up on our Instagram, and my goodness, that made me happy to see. And finally, we also received our very first listener email on the graphicnovelapostle@gmail.com email account. And believe it or not, it came all the way from Ghana, from a young man by the name of Sam. Sam, thank you so much for writing into us. You know, I chose to call myself the graphic novel apostle, and then it turns out the first person I hear from in our email account is someone from a family of actual missionaries. But he wrote in and suggested that, you know, we talked about the Pink Panther and we talked about The Man Who Knew Too Little, and maybe a good one that we missed was Rowan Atkinson's movie Johnny English. And man, I grew up watching Mr. Bean on Saturday evenings on PBS with my family, and Rowan Atkinson just made us belly laugh watching those. And so I was thrilled when, of course, the Bean movie came out several years later, and then, of course, he went on to do his own clueless spy movie, Johnny English, and so that's a great one. Sam, thank you for writing in and sharing that. All right, so just some general comic stuff as well, and please do, if you've got questions about comic books and how this industry works, or, you know, how we come to learn about these things, or I don't know, what's good, what's not. I guess all you get there is my opinion, but I'll share it with you. Please do write in and send us those questions. This week I want to talk about one particular book that just came out. It's a first issue of a 4-part series that Mad Cave Studios is doing. It's a book called Mugshots, written by Jordan Thomas, with art by Chris Matthews, and lettered by Lucas Gattoni. There's not a separate color artist credited in here, so I'm going to believe that artist Chris Matthews probably did the cover as well. This is a British crime noir story, and that's really about all you have to say to get me in the door. But then when I spotted the cover art, and I'm going to put up some samples of the art from this book on our Instagram page as well, but when I saw the cover art, I thought, oh man, this is my kind of book. For those of you who might be comics and graphic novel people already who are listening to this, the art was very, very strongly reminiscent of what artist Darwin Cook did in his adaptations of the Richard Starks Parker novels. Not only in the way it was drawn, but also in the way that it was colored. Every page in this book is a 3-color page. Black, white, and either like this turquoise type blue. It's more subtle than turquoise. And then some other pages are black, white, and like a burnt orange color. I haven't connected exactly yet how it's supposed to set off different parts of the story when the pages are different color. But boy, oh boy, it really pops off the page and looks good. This is going to be the story set in Brighton, United Kingdom in the year 2008. It involves a 19-year-old girl named Grace Bannon who was kidnapped. And then we learn 2 things pretty quickly about this young woman. One, she was dating the son of a local crime boss named Harry Woods, who was a bad news character. And 2, she has an estranged uncle who is himself a thief, a con man, kind of a general underworld figure who has been exiled from Brighton because he had gotten crossways with the Woods family. But he still has all these connections, and so he's going to be called back into town to help find his missing niece. We've got 4 more issues to go. I am very excited to see where this story takes us. So it's one that I'll update you on here and there along the way. And as we come back for more of these episodes, I'll give you just an idea of some of the other books I'm reading as well. Guys, once again, thank you so much for following along and listening. Next Monday morning, we'll have our second full episode. That will be with my buddy Peyton. We will be reviewing the book Criminal, Volume 1, which is called Coward, written by Ed Brubaker with art by Sean Phillips. That one is an adult book. It's not written for kids. It's a great crime story. It's one that I'm looking forward to sharing with y'all. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one.